Hey friend, Campbell here. I wanted to come on and just share a high point of my day today. Actually, it was last week, but I've been just thinking a lot about it. On February 2016th, 2018, I wrote a post on my personal Facebook wall and it showed up in my memories. And so I've been just thinking a lot about that post lately. And what I wrote in the post was thought of the day. When God is pulling you away from something, he's not trying to make you feel miserable. He's trying to lead you to something better. When I wrote that post back in 2018, little did I know back then when I wrote it just how powerful that thought of the day truly was. And that's what I've been thinking about ever since I've seen that memory since last week. You see, back when I wrote that post on February 26th, 2018, my dad was just laid to rest just a couple of weeks prior to writing that. And at that time, I was working in corporate IT at Toys R Us in their international headquarters. And when I went back to work and entered the building, I felt this darkness like I've never felt before, like a dark energy. It was very heavy. So I went to my desk. I went to my team status meeting. I received an update from my team on the big project I was working on. And then I went into my VP's office to sit down. Of course, he asked me how I was doing and how things were going. And we started to talk about the project. And as I mentioned, the moment I walked into that building that day, that morning, I felt this dark energy, a heavy energy in the building. It wasn't a good feeling. And so over the years, I've been working really hard on myself to stay out of like negative thoughts. So I wouldn't normally share something like this, especially with my boss, but this particular time, it was different. It's like I had a knowing inside um, that I just knew what I was feeling was true. And so as I was talking to him, we had a lot of challenges that we were trying to work through. And in the middle of the conversation, I stopped and I said to him, you know what? None of this shit is going to matter anyway. And he said, why? And I replied to him, because come June 1st, this place isn't going to be around. We're all going to be out of jobs. He looked at me and he said, what do you know? I said, I don't know anything factual. I just have a very deep feeling inside. And I just feel that this is just very true. He didn't say a word. It's almost like I knew God was speaking to me in that moment. I was having a God moment. Just 3 weeks later, in middle March, the entire company was called into a meeting by the CEO, and he told us that we were going to shut down the company in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, and we would all be laid off by June 1st, and we would not be receiving severance. After working there for 18 years, I was none too happy about this. There were naturally many people upset about that. But I didn't sit in my anger with this news. What I did sit in, however, was the shock that I actually saw. I knew this was coming and how accurate it was. Later that day, I went into my VP's office and sat down, and he looked at me and said, well, you nailed that one. How did you know? And I told him I just did. It was like God was just telling me inside. And you just happened to be the person sitting there in front of me when that unfiltered feeling happened to fly out of my mouth. He said, yeah, I was actually shocked that you shared that because it was totally not like you to be so negative. And I replied, I know I wouldn't normally have shared that, but for whatever reason that day, I felt like I had to share it. So that day I drove home from work and I decided that I'm not going to fall into anger over not receiving any severance. There was a lot of anger about that. And even though it would have been a really nice chunk of change to receive, I'm just going to let it go. The negative anger and resistance that would be created by holding on to that resentment, I knew that that negative anger and resistance was just going to hold me back and keep me from moving forward to wherever I was being led to go next. That I knew. So I chose to completely release it. It was so much more liberating than I ever expected, just to simply say, F it, I don't care about the money. I spent the next number of weeks in struggle, though, between my head and my mind over what to do next. My heart said, since you're working on earning your certifications to become a coach, just jump in and start your business full-time now. My head said, no freaking way. You can't do that. It's not safe. What about this? And how about that? You didn't receive a severance. You don't even have your certification yet. How are you going to do this? It's way too risky. You need to get another IT job. When my heart heard you need to get another IT job, it felt like a total life force energy suck. About a month later, I went to a live coaching event on April 12th, sponsored by the coaching school I was enrolled in. In my fear, I came this close to canceling the trip, thinking I need to save the money. But then suddenly something inside me said, don't do that. You have got to go. On the last night that I was there, I prayed for an answer on what direction to take. When I go back home, do I get another IT job or do I jump into my coaching full time? I asked for a sign, a really big sign. And if I didn't receive one, I was to make no decision at all. The next morning, I received that sign. It literally fell right in front of my feet. I couldn't believe it. It was that moment in Phoenix, Arizona, that I decided to follow and trust my heart and launch my business to start coaching full time. It was the first time I ever followed my heart in such a big way. I didn't know the how yet, but what I did know was the why. My why was all about having impact, having a positive impact on other people. And I also knew in my heart that I had to continue trusting the process of where I was being led. Since then, I haven't looked back once. I've worked really hard to stay out of fear and stay empowered in staying present in where my heart is leading me to go in serving people just like me. It's now been several years since I broke out of the fear and said, yes, I'm doing this. And it's turned out to be the best 3 years of my life because I'm standing in my power of truth, sharing my story, serving others, and experiencing what true freedom truly is. I sometimes stand in awe of how much I love what I get to do in serving people the way I do. I don't experience sleepless nights anymore. I don't experience the dreaded Mondays anymore. I don't live in the stress of the daily grind. I've learned and put into practice every day, choosing to go where my heart is leading me, to live in my purpose, in my why, not somebody else's purpose and not in somebody else's why, but mine. And because of that, my work doesn't feel like work. I look forward to it. It's fun. And all of my relationships as a result have improved as well, at home and in my work. I'm simply a better, happier, more balanced human in my being. And so in closing, I reflect back to what I wrote on my Facebook wall, February 26th, 2018. When God pulls you away from something, He's not trying to make you feel miserable. He's trying to lead you to something better.